Vellen kept his head down, his hood pulled up, as he walked through the bustling streets of Zirkonnos Prime. He needed to move quickly, but any faster than his current pace would raise suspicion. No one ran here, not unless they were being chased, and he didn't want people to think that. He normally loved to look up into the starry sky and pick out the constellations his brood father had drawn on his nursery wall, but this was no time for childish comforts. To look up would mean seeing the latest announcement on the plethora of skyscrapers, and he couldn't face it. He pulled on the hood, tried to cover even more of himself as he ducked through the back streets and clung to shadows. The night shift was wrapping up, and the day shift only just starting, so there were enough people going in every direction that he could be unobserved, or at least that was his plan, unless... Had that man seen him? Or that woman? That group of youths had looked his way, but no, they hadn't recognised him. He ignored the intrusiveness of strangers and their hollow vid calls, blocked out the incessant whir of the hovercars overhead, and focused on getting home. It was only when he got to his apartment building that he broke into a sprint, rushing to the elevator, jabbing the button for his floor, dashing down the corridor, desperately unlocking the door and urgently shutting it behind him. He locked it, but even then he didn't feel safe. He could feel his heart beating so fast, too fast, as the panic rose. He slumped, his weight against the door. He couldn't hide here. This would be the first place anyone would look. How could he have been so foolish? There was a small sound from the connecting room, Vellen's bedroom. Any other day, he would have ignored it, assumed it was the air purifier or a trapped insect trying to find freedom. He heard it again. It was definitely movement. Someone else was here. Vellen instinctively grabbed a rolling pin, brandishing it above his head as he tentatively opened the door. Someone was sat on his bed, clearly an alien based on his appearance and fashion. He only had 2 eyes, not the typical 4, and his long coat seemed to be woven from some sort of fabric, not welded together. The stranger locked eyes with Vellen and offered a curious smile. "Hello there," the doctor said as he leaned back on the bed, trying and failing to act casual. "Who are you?" Vellen half screamed, his hands shaking. "That's the wrong question, really, because I'm not the interesting one. I'm only the doctor. No, the right question is..." The doctor pulled a thin metallic device from the inside pocket of his long coat and pointed it around the room. His sonic screwdriver buzzed as multiple screens flickered into life. The doctor indicated at each in turn. "Why is your face on every screen?" The doctor clambered up, pulling a leather wallet from his coat. "And more importantly, why is your face here?" The doctor opened up his psychic paper to reveal an image of Vellen's face. "Who are you?" The familiar and reassuring blue police box that was the outer shape of the doctor's TARDIS rasped into reality in a poorly kept and slightly cramped apartment. One door opened, and out bounded the time traveller, curiosity in his eyes. "This is the planet Zirkonnos," he declared. "More specifically, the imaginatively named city of Zirkonnos Prime." He turned back to the ship. There was no one there. The first few trips after a friend left the TARDIS were always the worst. It took time to remember they had a life elsewhere, and that it was just him now, bumbling about in that seemingly endless craft. "Oh yes," he muttered under his breath. No one there. But, luckily for the doctor, he wasn't alone for very long. A doddering, elderly figure stepped into what the doctor quickly assessed was some sort of living room cum kitchenette.
"Who are you?
She snapped.
And what is that thing?"
Neither of them seemed like questions, more like insults. She leaned on a walking stick, and an impatient clicking noise escaped her throat. The doctor pulled himself up to his full height and waved grandly. "Surprise! You've won a free..." He dug around feverishly in his coat pockets, looking for something to give away. "A paperback copy of Wuthering Heights. Ooh, it's a classic. And what's today's winner's name?" She scowled, each of her 4 eyes blinking in turn. The doctor remembered that each eye had a special significance. One processed light and movement, another colour and contrast, the third tone and emotion, and the last, most interestingly, saw through time into a potential future. The doctor knew from personal experience that having an idea of what the future might hold was more often than not a double-edged sword. The woman assessed this stranger in her apartment before answering.
"Lucerne."
As she said her name, her lips peeled back to reveal 3 layers of dirty teeth, Congratulations, Lucerne! To get your hands on this fabulous book, all you have to do is answer one simple question. He retrieved the psychic paper from his coat. Who's this? Lucerne let out an unpleasant sound that the doctor thought was supposed to be a laugh.
What kind of trick is this? What do you want with Vellen?
And who's Vellen? Is he family? Or a lodger? As he spoke, the doctor could see a small screen built into a kitchen appliance, perhaps their version of a refrigerator. Vellen's face was on it. He was definitely in the right place. But Lucerne spat at him, the wrong apartment. The doctor handed over the novel and nodded. Let me know what you think. And with that, he hurried to the front door and headed to the right place. It was only as the stranger left that Lucerne turned and saw her neighbour's face on all the screens and started to put things together. The doctor was very close to Vellen now, and he could sense the fear. He had hoped that catching Vellen up would calm him down somehow. It wasn't working. So, I was wondering who you might be, because that's no mean feat projecting an image like that into the vortex. I locked onto the origin of the signal and found myself here. Well, I actually arrived 3 doors down and met your rather irate neighbour Lucerne. You can't blame my TARDIS, that's my ship. What's a few hundred metres in all of time and space? Anyway, Lucerne very kindly directed me to your apartment for my much sought after answers. So, where would you like to start? Vellen considered the rolling pin. How many times would he have to hit this rambling stranger to knock him out? His fourth eye showed him visions of this doctor crumpled on the floor as Vellen hit him again and again and again. None of it ever enough. Him crying because he had to do this. He had to survive. But was it really worth this? He could feel his third eye swelling with sadness. Vellen didn't want that to be his future, so he dropped the rolling pin onto the marble floor.
My name is Vellen.
He felt the energy drain from him. How had he been found so quickly? If nothing else, he felt embarrassed.
I surrender.
The doctor raised a quizzical eyebrow. Why would you do that?
You've seen the posters. You must know.
The doctor turned to the closest screen, a fancy mirror that seemed to reflect altered perceptions of yourself. This is what you look like with red hair, with flattering makeup, with a cartoon mouse face. And inset into the corner, taking up around a quarter of the mirror, was Vellen's face. The doctor peered at the text surrounding it. Your language is pictographic. Let me just... He fumbled in his pockets and retrieved a pair of pince-nez glasses, placing them delicately on his face. Ah, that's better. It's been a while since I read Zirkonnos. That's where we are, right? Zirkonnos? Vellen nodded, but the doctor didn't even turn to check. So the pictographs say, your name, Vellen, hello again, blah blah blah. There's always miscellaneous guff on these wanted posters. The doctor stopped, realising what he had just said. He pivoted sharply on his heels, peering at Vellen through the glasses. Wanted posters? That's why you surrendered. Are you a criminal, Vellen? Vellen struggled to control his breathing. Was this all a game? It felt cruel to be mocked like this.
I'm innocent. The Shogun's daughter did this. It's not fair. I'm nobody, and now everyone in the city will be looking for me. They'll kill me to claim the reward. They'll do anything to buy their way out of this dump.
The doctor processed all of this. Right. Simple. So, all we need to do is prove that you aren't guilty of whatever the Shogun's daughter thinks you are.
We?
Vellen was confused.
What do you mean, we?
The doctor grinned. Well, I'm going to help you, obviously. What part of doctor didn't you understand?
But helping me will anger the Shogun. Your life will be forfeit.
The doctor shrugged. The Zirkonnos Shogun doesn't scare me. Actually, which Shogun are we talking about? Because Hollis was a delight, a very accomplished poet, but Silvus?
How can you say the Almighty's name so casually?
Vellen whispered in terror. Oh, so it is Silvus. Nasty man, very controlling.
And criticising him too. You'll end up higher on the city's most wanted list than me.
The doctor brushed it off. Surely that would make your life easier if I was. It would take the pressure off you if my face was on every screen. The doctor paused, stared into the mirror. My face. It's fresh on, not entirely used to it yet. He pulled on his cheeks, played with his long hair, brushed dust off his coat sleeve. Vellen watched the doctor watch himself. The notion of help was appealing, but this alien was clearly mad. In a split second, the doctor snapped back to reality. So, my opening theory was that you were breaking out into a telepath and the growing pains caused your face to pop up everywhere, which I thought would be supremely interesting and I could be helpful. But then we started chatting and I slowed down enough to actually read the posters and listen to the tidbits of information you've offered, and now I'm remembering from some recess of my brain that the Zirkonnos crown can act as a huge transmitter. So that's probably what did it. I didn't lock onto the source. My TARDIS honed in on coordinates embedded in the transmission. Such a silly mistake. So, the Shogun's daughter knows where you live. You must be special. How much was the reward? 1 million credits. That's an obscene payday. Vellen hurried around the room, trying to gather up any essentials he'd need for a life on the run. What should he take? A change of clothes, or better yet, a disguise? He'd need food, enough to keep him going in the short term, and a few refresher pods to keep him from drifting into the great slumber.
I told you, I'm nobody.
Vellen's packing was interrupted by a very sudden, very loud knock at the front door. A figure hurried through a chamber bigger than most houses, carrying a tray of drinks and sweet treats. It was well known that the Shogun's daughter preferred the floral delights, and anyone who wanted to curry favour with her sent as many as they could afford. It was her father who ruled with a terrifying iron fist, and there was no way of turning his head when he set his mind to something. Except, the Shogun adored his daughter, and she liked the attention that came with it. The servant placed the tray down beside her throne and hurried away. She hungrily helped herself, her 3 layers of bejewelled teeth making light work of the confectionery. The servants knew better than to linger. Having lived her entire life in her father's shadow, it wasn't surprising that the Shogun's daughter had been moulded in his form, cruel and domineering. The chamber was quiet, until the Shogun's daughter, elaborately dressed in the greatest finery that the planet had to offer, clicked her fingers, and 5 large holoscreens appeared in front of her. Each showed security footage of the city.
Where are you?
She muttered. Her 4th eye showed her flashes of accidents, of bodies in the street, hit by hovercars, or the reluctant peace of the great slumber. No, none of them would be vicious enough. She wanted there to be pain, she needed it. The voice inside her head was getting desperate, but there was something else there too, something she was trying to ignore. No. If there was no news soon, she would have to up the ante. The other thing that was well known about the Shogun's daughter was that she absolutely, positively had to have her way. And as she watched each screen, flicking from one camera to the next, she knew she would. Vellen froze. Not expecting guests? The doctor asked, peering to the source of the noise. Vellen indicated to keep his voice down, and the doctor nodded. They would play dead and hope whoever it was went away. Each second dragged on and on as they waited. Vellen reached for more refresher pods when there was another knock. The doctor crept silently through the apartment and approached the front door. Beside it was a small screen. Half of it was covered in the wanted poster of Vellen's face, but the other half showed who, or perhaps what, was outside. The doctor's eyes widened in shock as he saw at least 30 people, each armed with a makeshift weapon. One of them was Vellen's irate neighbour Lucerne, her elderly face pressed up close to the camera, a sharp, pronged fork in her hand. Through the door, he could hear their conversation.
Is he in there?
I heard him go in.
Can we break the door down? Smash it to pieces.
No, I know the override code.
He heard someone pressing buttons and the click of the lock releasing. The front door started to slide open, revealing the angry mob. Reacting quickly, the doctor aimed his sonic screwdriver at the controls and the door slid shut with ferocious speed. And for good measure, he muttered as he overrode the override and sealed the door shut. He slammed his elbow into the screen too, hoping that might prevent anyone from trying to undo his work. He strode back into the bedroom to find Vellen at the window. Do you want the good news or the bad news first? Thinking about it, the good news won't make sense without the bad. But Vellen wasn't listening. He was staring out at the city from 40 stories up. The doctor closed the distance in a heartbeat. You can't jump. Vellen turned.
There's too many of them. We can't go out the front door. They'd kill us.
So glad you're saying we and us now. I hope I've hitched my wagon to the right horse here. The doctor patted Vellen on the shoulder in a way that he hoped was encouraging. So, what alternatives do we have? Because it sounds like the mob is trying to break their way in, and I've only bought us half a minute based on the frame and thickness of the door, so we'll need a plan, and pretty sharpish. Vellen threw a chair at the window, smashing it. The wind this high up was intense, almost knocking them back.
When I said plan, the doctor half yelled over the din, I took it as read that we'd come up with something good, not just leaping out of a window and hoping something catches us.
The doctor glanced back at the front door. It was buckling far faster than he'd have liked. Vellen pointed through the glass.
There's a ledge. It's small, but we can shimmy along it to one of the other apartments. It's our only hope.
Says a lot about a person when they know how to flee their home in moments like this. I'm looking forward to finding out who you are, Vellen. You first, since you're the one they're after. The doctor tried for a reassuring smile, but it was lost in the strong breeze and the increasingly loud banging. It was worrying, he thought, how strong a motivator greed was. To turn on friend and neighbour, to hunt and kill them, and for what? Money? It didn't bring happiness, especially not when covered in the blood of the innocent. Or was he? The doctor turned back to the broken window to find Vellen gone, and as the door finally caved in, he scampered after him. The doctor was immediately struck by how small the ledge really was. He counted himself lucky that his boots had such good grip because they barely fit sideways on the ledge, narrowly avoiding the shards of glass still in the window frame. Vellen was a few inches to the left, all four eyes shut as he sidled away from his apartment. "Wait for me!" the doctor yelled as he copied his new acquaintance.
Mustn't look down, mustn't look down.
Vellen muttered under his breath as he clung desperately to the wall. There wasn't much to hold on to. Clearly, the architect hadn't designed the apartment block for exterior exploration. The wind swept around them both, whistling a deadly tune. "You have to keep going," the doctor yelled. "You can do this!" He neglected to tell Vellen how he had nearly fallen 3 times already in the handful of seconds he had been on the ledge, fearing it might spook him. Each near miss had certainly spooked the doctor, his coat rippling dramatically around him. He couldn't hear anything over the wind, and didn't dare look back to see if their escape route had been discovered. He had to hope that they had enough time to get wherever they were going. Vellen could feel a lip in the wall, presumably from a window, but to check would mean opening his eyes. And he again faced visions of despair as his fourth eye imagined how horrifying it would be to fall from 40 floors up, how long it would take to hit the ground, and whether he'd land on a hovercar first, how many bones he'd break, and how slow and painful it would be. It saddened him to realise that the best outcome he currently faced was a quick death, but then he felt a presence beside him. The doctor had caught up. "Looks like this apartment's empty. Should we pay him a visit?" The doctor didn't wait for a response as he rammed the heel of his boot against the glass, extremely grateful that it had smashed the first time and he didn't have to risk losing his balance again. He quickly climbed in and half-supported, half-yanked Vellen in with him. The doctor's first instinct was to stick his head out the window and see if they were being followed. There was no one on the ledge. They were safe, but only for a moment. This gave them both chance to catch their breath. "Do you feel like telling me how you know the Shogun's daughter? Because this is cruel, but I can't see it being random." Vellen sighed and pulled back his hood and parted what little hair he had to reveal 3 pointy nubs on the top of his head. He looked at the doctor as if that was answer enough, and the Time Lord was forced, yet again, to rack his brain trying to remember any details about the Zirkonnon. He had read an entire encyclopedia about them in one of his earlier regenerations, but he had read so many books since then, and it was unfair to expect him to have instantaneous recall. "Treat me like a fool," he said, "and explain, if you please."
These are the marks of the mind. I am a memory smith.
That rang a bell for the doctor, who instinctively turned to his side to explain it to Freya. The doctor looked into the blank space beside him, before shaking it off. "They give you a genetic predisposition for telepathic transference, and you, alter memories?"
Recover lost or fading ones. It is impossible to remember everything, no matter how hard you try.
The doctor was briefly lost in thought, recalling the face of everyone he had travelled with, and everyone he had lost. "They're terribly rare, aren't they? One in every generation, that sort of thing?" the doctor mooted.
1 in every 10 million brood groups.
Vellen agreed. The doctor decided now wasn't the time to question how many in a brood group. He could check that back in the TARDIS, but he guessed quite a lot.
I soon gained a reputation worthy of the royal court and was summoned last week. The Shogun's daughter wanted memories of her youth and her mother refreshed, and I did as instructed.
"Didn't she like what you unearthed? Must have been bad to turn the entire city against you," the doctor mused.
No,
Vellen said, utterly dejected.
She loved it. A little too much, if you ask me.
The doctor raised his eyebrow at this, glad that this incarnation seemed to have a good line in bemused expressions.
Yesterday, when I was teaching at the university, I received a summons. I was to return to the royal court to become one of her husbands, so I could assist her whenever she demanded.
The doctor nodded. "And you refused, I take it?" She threw her toys out of the proverbial pram and decided that if she can't have you, no one can. The powerful do so love to get their own way.
So there's nothing to do.
Vellen fell into an armchair and soon a thought lingered between them, an image in both their minds of a figure in the distance.
I'm doomed.
The image fizzled to nothing as both Vellen and the doctor realised they weren't actually alone in the apartment.
When I heard the window break, I hid in the wardrobe, but then I recognised your voice.
Stood in the doorway was Lexil, a sharp-faced young man holding an energy blaster. He pointed it first at Vellen.
I've seen the wanted posters.
Then he pointed the blaster at the doctor.
And there's a bonus for accomplices. My father used this blaster in the war. There's enough charge left for you too.
As the doctor's mind raced, trying to think of a way out, Lexil pulled the trigger and the blaster roared into life. And Vellen's fourth eye told him that the blast was headed straight for him.